everyone.
Welcome, welcome. Lovely to have you here with us.
Hey, welcome everyone. Here we are. Got a special treat for you tonight.
It always feels like a bit of a family seeing all your faces. It's lovely to see for this special edition. You know who we are, but I will introduce us anyway, partly because we're recording as well. So I'm Parul, and my co-host is
it's Matt.
So this is the London Writers Salon mini masterclass on Scrivener. And so there are a number of tools out there, and you're here today probably because you either use it or you're curious about using it. It's certainly been something I've used the last couple of months, and I've found it invaluable. I would love to hear, before we go a little bit deeper in, I'd love to hear where you're at with Scrivener. So are you a total newbie? Are you curious? Pop into the chat box and let me know where you're at. Curious, newbie, total newbie. Okay, great. So we've got a whole range here. Okay, fantastic. So downloaded it in a fit of excitement, but don't know how to use it. Yeah, that's exactly where I was around 5-6 months ago, and Randall was the one who helped me with it. So with that, I'll introduce Randall in 1 second, but there's a lot that we can do when it comes to Scrivener. We could probably spend 6 or 7 hours on it, but today what we're going to be doing is just having a look at the basic functionality so that you get an overview of some of the incredible things you can do as a writer and as an editor. And we'll take any questions. We'll have a little bit of time for Q&A at the end, where we can go a bit deeper. And if there's enough demand, we might even put on more advanced workshops in Scrivener. Randall is a wonderful certified StoryGrid editor. He actually is my co-host on the StoryGrid Showrunner podcast. He's an ex-military man, and he's a Scrivener enthusiast. So welcome, Randall, and I will hand over the reins to you.
All right. So let's see. So I've been using, let me do a little introduction. I've been using Scrivener. I did NaNoWriMo, the National Novel Writing Month, in 2013. And they offered like 50% off of this thing called Scrivener. I was like, well, it's only like $30. So I bought it. I messed around with it. And then, like a lot of you I can see in the chat, kind of used it to write. And I thought it was interesting and a little bit more usable than Word. So I kept using it. I kept exploring it. I watched some YouTube videos. I finally took a course on it. And then a couple of years ago, I started doing the StoryGrid. And then I started looking at it as from an editor point of view and like a rewrite point of view, and using a lot of the capabilities to do my rewrites. After my first manuscript was written, I would look at it from a different POV, from an editor's point of view, and do a lot of stuff. So what I want to do today is do some really basic stuff like, hey, this is how you open it. This is how you do, these are all the different parts and things like that. And then I'm going to open up an already manuscript that I already have in there with all the bells and whistles, and I'll show you what it can do, though we won't have time to go through all of those things today. And I think that Matt and Parul would be interested to see if you guys want to learn more about the bells and whistles later on. But today is going to be mostly an introduction of how to get it set up to start, and what it's capable of if when you move forward. I think you're going to go through the agenda there, Parul. I think you're muted.
I'm muted, sorry. Yeah, it's a hard one with Scrivener, because if you've never seen it before, some of this won't quite make sense. But we're gonna run through, why we love Scrivener specifically. There are 4 parts to Scrivener that are a really good place to start. We're gonna look at how we create chapters within Scrivener. We're gonna look at what happens when you import Tarzan, and how we can label, how we can use it as a sort of virtual post-it note. And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff, inspector, search, etc. So I'll stop sharing, but I will be referencing that as we'll come back to that just to make sure we're on track. The one thing I've realized about Scrivener, and it's taken me a couple of months, is that it can replace almost every other form of management for your book, whether it's Post-its, whether it's a scrapbook, whether it's like a binder full of information or a whole bunch of Word documents. And yeah, that's what this session is going to go. Randall, go ahead and share your screen.
And I just want to chime in. And Paolo, you were saying that potentially it could be really good for blogging as well, or scripts, or other writing projects too, right?
Absolutely. And part of the reason it's really good for that sort of stuff as well is the functionality you have to save. So you can take a snapshot of your article, say, at 1 hour, and then completely rewrite it and still have that saved. It is such a geeky little tool, fantastic but geeky, and you'll see it in practice. You'll see some of the stuff. It's I'm constantly amazed at all the different things it can do. So go ahead, Randall.
Oh, no, so I use it for the podcasts. I copy all our podcast scripts in there and keep them, so you keep them all in one place. I do it for I have 2 podcasts, so I do it for one for each podcast. Every single one of my books that I've been writing, I also use it to edit for all my clients. Every single client I've ever used, I've used a version of Scrivener to edit it and make it a better book. And I'm going to show you kind of some things that I use, some tools I use for that.
Great.
All right. So this is this little S. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's not very big, but this little S icon is the Scrivener icon. And
no, I wouldn't put your Scrivener open just because it might cause confusion. But what we will suggest is that you rewatch this video after this. And if you don't have Scrivener, use the free trial version and then go through some of these steps yourself. I want you just to get a sense of how it works. If you happen to have it open next to you and you want to, I won't stop you, but it might end up being a bit confusing for you.
All right, so when you click on the Scrivener icon, what you get is you get this little project templates. There's a couple different templates. If you can look on the left, there's a blank one, obviously. Fiction, nonfiction, script writing. Miscellaneous has got like poems and recipe collection. So this is version 3.0. It's on the Mac. So if you have a Windows, there's Windows versions. It's slightly different. Okay, so I haven't had a Windows in about a year or two, so I don't know all of the different pieces of it that are different. It'll look a little bit different, and the capabilities should be pretty close to the same though.
It is, and you can Google search, because I had a Windows before I had a Mac, and I used the both more or less the same.
Every time they do a new version, they add more templates. So the templates are basically, you should go in there and see if that's the right fonts and the right spacing and the right pieces of like the forward, the table of contents. If that's what you like, you can always change it. But if that's something you want to start with, then by all means click on what you want to start with. I'm not going to go through all these. I'm going to select fiction and novel, and that's where we're going to start. But you're more than obviously, when you got your own copy of Scrivener, go through all the templates and see what works for you for your project. So once you click what you want, you click on choose, and then you have to title it, because Scrivener, the great thing about Scrivener is it saves like every couple seconds, so you won't lose your work.
So we'll call it My Great Novel.
My Great Novel. I think I already have one of those in there. I might have to save over it.
My Very Great Novel, yeah.
All right, let me stretch this out here. All right, so this is, go ahead.
I was going to say, my first impression of Scrivener when I first saw it was, oh my God, there's a lot of information in here. But we're gonna talk you through the larger parts section so you get a feel for it, and we're going to go over it a couple of times so that you get a sense.
All right, so there's a couple different parts that are really important to look at. The first part we're going to start at on the far left, and I'm going to put a little green. Guys, can you guys see that green rectangle?
Yep.
That is called the binder. It's the left side, and there's a couple different folders. You have the manuscript folder, and the manuscript folder is everything that is you're going to write. It's your book basically that you're going to export into a Word or a PDF or a Mobi form, and ship to your editor and your publisher eventually. Okay, so that when you end up exporting from this after you've written your whole book, everything in this folder is what's going to be exported. Everything else is a supporting character to your book. it's a character. You can have different, let's see. You can have different character sheets in here with pictures, and I'll show you a full-blown book version of this afterwards. And you can have character descriptions, their goals, their motivations. Same thing with places. The front matter is going to be your author's information, your cover, and all this stuff will be put into the front of your book when you export it as well. Then you got your notes and your research. And like I said, all of this stuff besides the manuscript folder is just in support of your manuscript. So it won't actually appear in your manuscript unless you want to. You can. There's ways to make it appear, but most of the time the default is it won't appear.
It took me a couple of months to realize that it was called a binder for a reason, which is it literally replaces the equivalent of your digital folder full of notes or your physical binder. And as you'll come to see, when you're writing, so say you're writing about a character, you can actually pull up a picture of a character while writing that scene and have that side by side in a really easy way.
All right, so let's talk a lot.
And there are 4 parts in total, right, that we're going to go over?
Yeah, but let's. There's a couple of things I want to do. Oh, we're not going to do the chapters right now. Let's go over into the editor. Okay, so if you check a scene, if you click on a scene, this middle part is called the editor. And this is where the magic happens. This is where you're going to write. And you'll notice that above the editor is a bunch of stuff, just like Word. You can center your page. You can choose a font. You can choose a size. You can choose your spacing. And it's just like Word. And you can just go to town, start typing. And this is basically you can start typing your book right there. And you can go on and use Scrivener just like this, just like I did the first day I ever saw it. You know, there was a white hair. And then you can do that. And then this could be like scene 1. And then you click on that and make scene 2. And then you go on, make another scene, type some more stuff. All right. So this is basically how you're gonna write your manuscript, chapter by chapter. You can also write it as a whole, and I'll show you how to do that later. And there's also you may be distracted by all the stuff on the right and the left and the top. And there's another mode you can go to where all you see is your writing and you don't have to worry about any of that other stuff. And we'll talk about that later as well. So if you go from big to small, you have your outline, you can make your scenes. If you're a planner, you can plan all your scenes out, scene 1, and title of all your chapters. If you do that, make your outline over here, and then you can click each one and start typing each scene. If you go to the far right, let me get my little thing here. This part right here is called the inspector. All right, and there's a blue eye up here. Usually it's blue, but since I'm in draw mode, it's not. But this is how you turn it off and turn it on. So if I click it, it goes away, and if I click it, it comes back. That's as easy as it is to get the inspector. There's a number of things in the inspector, and their little inspector toolbar up here. And we're going to talk about that because we kind of need a manuscript to show you actually how to use all those tools. Okay. The
inspector is incredible. So I didn't think I fully understood the amount of information you can put in there. So for I think Lauren, I saw that you just use the basic stuff, and you can absolutely just use Scrivener for the basic tools. But the inspector will change your writing life.
And then the last part really is this toolbar up here. And most of these tools are shortcuts to the different aspects and capabilities you can use. And you can right click on the toolbar, go to customize toolbar, and you can see all the tools that are available there for you to basically stick up here. And you can only put so many up here, but you put your favorites, the ones you use the most, and you can switch them out. Okay. We're going to go into a couple of these, but not so much because it's not more advanced, but there's things in here that are obviously, it depends on how you write, whether you want to use it or not. Okay. So we're not going to go into that too much farther right now. And clear that. All right. So real quick, I went over how to use a scene, but you can actually, it depends on how you write whatever you're writing. You know, a nonfiction book's going to be different than a fiction book. A nonfiction might have 3 or 4 different parts in a chapter. A fiction book might have 3 or 4 scenes. or you may do just chapter by chapter, and a chapter is a scene. So that's up to you, however you want to do it. When you click on this chapter thing, you can right click on it and change it into a file so you can write, and you can call it like chapter 1. And then you can get rid of the scenes that are underneath it. You select them. You can right click and move to trash. All right. So now you have a chapter 1, and now you can write it as one chapter, and maybe it's just one scene. That's the way you write your books. And you can push enter, and you can put chapter 2. And then you can also do this up here. You can add text and add folders and things like that up here, but it's just easier to push enter for me. So that's pretty much what I want to do now. Is I want to import a document. So this is how you would set it up. If you wanted to start from scratch, you didn't have a document, you have maybe an outline, or you want to make an outline right there, you can put it in your notes, you can make the chapters, and then you just go to town writing, especially if you're a pantser, you just want to go to town writing probably. Some of you may have started documents and they're in Word or PDF or Google Docs or something. So I'm going to show you a really simple way to import a document from Word, okay? And I'm going to show you how to import a 32 chapter book from Word and already divide it into the different chapters in the binder, so you don't have to do that yourself. So first I'm going to open up my project that I've already made with all the cool stuff. So I'm going to show you how to use, called Tarzan. It's a book I've been working on for a while. All right, so we're going to start with this manuscript. We're going to go to, what I have is, I'm going to take you to the Word file I have for Tarzan.
So this will basically save you time. So you can just throw in a Word document into Scrivener, and it would just end up on one page basically. But if you do this little hack, it just means it automatically divides it for you, saves you a whole bunch of time. As an editor, this is what I do basically. If I get given a Word document, I go in and I do exactly what Randall's
all right. So I have a 200-page document here that's actually Tarzan of Apes, written by Edgar Rice Burroughs. I got from the Gutenberg. It's 89,000 words, and what we're going to do is real simple. We're going to take the search. We're going to go to replace, and the key is you have to put in front of every chapter where you want to have the break. You need to put a unique character. In most cases, hashtag will work. So I'm going to replace every chapter with a hashtag chapter. All right, and I can see that there's no other weird chapters in the middle of any chapters. So it's just the chapter headings. So that's cool. So I'm going to replace them all, as you can see right there. This has got now a hashtag in front of it, as does all the other chapters in the book. Okay, I'm going to save that. Get out of there and go back to my Scrivener project. And I'm gonna click on the manuscript folder, which is where I'm going to put all the chapters that from that document. Go to File. If I'm going too fast, go in the chat and let me know if you can't see what I'm doing.
Yeah. If you have a desperate need for us to stop or to speed up as well, just put your comments in and we'll try and adjust it.
So from File, you're going to go to Import, and you're going to go to Import and Split. All right, and not to give me a boost here, but on my website, we'll put a link at the end. I have instructions and screenshots to do all this. So if this isn't working for you, and I think they're going to put a tape of this recording of this up too as well. Import and Split. Now you have to select the document that you split. So that's all right. So I've selected that, and then if you look down
Randall,
here,
just to interrupt you super quick, do you know if the trial version is any different? I don't think it is, right? In terms of functionality.
I think it's the trial version for like 30 days or 60 days or something, and then you have to purchase it, right?
It's 30 days from of use, actual use, rather than when you get it. Yeah. I used the trial version before. I thought I had full functionality, but I've got a few comments in here from Rachel and Barbara saying that they're not sure that they could see all the options on the toolbar, but it might be because you haven't put them in the toolbar. Or it
Oh,
could
all
be your,
these? This toolbar is unique to me because I made the toolbar for what I like to use, using that right click thing to add stuff to the toolbar. So a lot of these things are unique. When you open it the first time, it's going to have what it thinks you need to use, and then you can switch it out and make it unique to yourself.
can you just, so if I wanted to open that toolbar, it was, well, I'll tell you what, Barbara,
let
show
me
you the
import
toolbar in a
this, and then
second.
we can go back to the toolbar. Okay.
Yeah.
So you've gone to your file, you import it split. You've chosen your document that you're going to split, which has the hashtags in it, and you've split into sections by finding separations in the text, and it's separated by a hashtag. If you decide to use something else like asterisks or a $sign or something like that, then you would put that in there, obviously. And you push import. And now it's going to think for a little bit. It does a little twirly, colorful thing. And because we're sharing a screen, it might take a little longer. But this is going to, you're going to see it. It's going to separate, there you go, all the chapters by chapter right there in the manuscript. And so all the chapters are with all your manuscript that you've been writing for the last 3 years is now in Scrivener. Yeah. Okay. Now you can do a couple things. You can take the manuscript, and I'm going to tell you about a few ways to look at this. So let me get the annotation thing here. All right. So if you look over here, you'll see group mode. That should be that you should be able to see that on your Scrivener, whatever version you have.
So this is editor, right? This is what would still come under editor functionality. So it's like different ways.
This is kind of a combination of editor and binder.
Okay.
So if you click on the whole manuscript, you can look at the whole manuscript in a row. This is 174,000 words because I have it twice, because I have a test folder here that I'm going to show you what I've done with some of the gee whiz bells and whistles stuff. But it's 174,000 words, and it's all the chapters right in a row. You can go in there just like you were doing in Word and look at it like that instead of looking at it like a chapter if you don't want to do that. The other way you can look at it is through a corkboard mode. So this is very interesting because you got the chapters. I'm going to take you into my test folder and do the corkboard through that because it's more interesting and colorful. So if you look at a corkboard, you can take these. You can take these and with the labels and the colors, and you can make them anything you want. In this case, I've decided to take the labels. Can you guys see this? I have 4 labels. One is John Clayton's POV, one is Tarzan's POV, one's Jane's POV, one's Darno POV. This is one way you can use labels. So red is John Clayton, blue is Tarzan, yellow is Jane, and this is Darno. And so this is broken down to all my POVs. If that's something you're interested in tracking because you want to see which POVs are used, how often they're used. Do I need to have more of a POV than another if you want to have some kind of equilibrium for some reason in your thing? You can also look at just those scenes that the POV of Jane's talking to make sure that all her, the way she's thinking has continuity. That's another way to use this. And you don't have to, you can label these POVs whatever you want. You can track, a lot of times when I'm editing, I'll track it as I've done my first edit of this chapter. I haven't started on this chapter, or I'm halfway through this chapter or something like that. So you can also do kind of a status. Now, there's also a status here, but you can't see the status colors in your binder, but you can see them written across these cards. So if that's the way you want to track your progress, you can do it that way. And that's all seen here in what's called the corkboard. And Parul said it's just like a bunch of sticky notes on your yeah. So
I was thinking of sometimes some writers like get on their wall will put a whole bunch of post-it notes to try and track different story threads.
Mm-hmm. So
and this feels like the same thing.
So what I want to do now is introduce you to the
Actually, Randall, sorry, I have a question, which is, says Susie tried setting a status, but it didn't show up on the corkboard. Can you reset one?
So you're going to have to get into to set it up. You have to go into preferences, and there's a lot of things that you'll have to do to get that. So the status isn't automatically set up to show. You have to go into preferences, appearances, So this is going to be real complicated. I don't think we have time to go through all these things. But you can go to the index cards and you can find all of these options here, like what's the shape of the index cards, and there's the cork board, and then what the status stamps look like, and if they're, all that stuff's in there, and you can mess around to show what the best way you want it to present in the way you write your book.
That's fine.
That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, there's a lot of that's why people are like, this is really complicated. There's a lot of extra things you can do. And once you set it up the way you like to write and edit, then you got it, it's done. But you have to, there's a couple classes you probably have to go through to figure out exactly how you like it, because you don't even know what you like until you see it, right? So I was going to go through the inspector, or is that where we're at now, Parul?
Yes, we've covered the binder. We've looked at the editor and the 3 views. And just quickly, do we need to look at, because one thing you showed me which I really liked was when you can look at 2 chapters or 3 chapters at a time, or have you covered that already?
Like a split screen?
No, actually, no. Go ahead to the metadata. Maybe that's a good place.
All right. So first of all, let's start at the beginning. We're going to start with, let's see. So this little toolbar up here is where we're going to start. Okay. You click on a chapter, so you got all this writing in here, and we're going to start with the first one, which is the synopsis. Now, this is really significant because when you go to corkboard, this is the synopsis of all of these chapters. So if you're a planner, you can write down the significant incidences that are or the significant events in each chapter that'll help you kind of plan your way through the writing of that chapter. And then when you hit the chapter, it'll be, this is the synopsis right here that you have written, which are the key things that are going to happen in that chapter. So it's kind of your guideline for that chapter, especially if you're a planner, right? These notes don't appear on anything, but you can print them out later if you want to write like, hey, I need to look up this. I need to look up if there's actually great apes in Africa. I need to look up, do they have big teeth or whatever. This can be like your research notes. You can say, I need to add a scene where I need to add a bullet where Tarzan talks about his cabin or something in this scene. These are just kind of notes to yourself, and these are like your synopsis summary of the scene. And all these colors that I've selected, they just work for me. All these colors for these labels, you can pick whatever color in the crayon box you want. And same thing for these. You can choose the colors you want, and you can choose a background color for this if you don't want to do white. You can be as colorful as you want. The next one is not something we're going to talk about real soon right now, but it's about bookmarks. So if you want to link to a website about Tarzan or about apes, great apes, you can take the URL, stick it in here, and you can have access to it. It's all in one place. And that's all this is. The metadata, let's skip that for now because it's going to take a while, but it's really interesting. Let's go straight to the snapshot. All right. Here's the snapshot, and this is freaking phenomenal, right? So when I opened this and loaded this in, I took a snapshot, which is as easy as doing that. That makes a copy of everything that's in the editor right then. So that chapter, and I did it when I started, and I did it after I edited something, and now I have it again, and now I'm going to just delete like that because I can, and then I'm going to add some stuff like that. And I say great apes, great ups are great. Okay. So the way this works is this is my current version. I haven't saved it, but let's save it anyway, because that's always good practice. You can save as many as you want. So this is my current one, and this is my original. So my current one's in here, and this is my original, and you can see the original down here. But even better, you can compare the two. The red is what I erased. The blue is what I added. And you can see all the things you've added and subtracted that are different from the original.
And I have two questions for you here.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
One is, can you have it take automatic snapshots at certain intervals? And 2, where does it save to?
So I don't think you can take automatic snapshots. it automatically saves it. So you're always going to have your current version. But when you finish writing for the day, best practice is to take a snapshot of the day for that, which you just written. But I'm not positive. I just don't ever remember seeing that anywhere.
I have it. I actually feel like, so there's a Scrivener folder on your computer,
right.
wherever it saves. It must be in that version somewhere. Because if you can reopen it and those snapshots exist, then they must save in the same folder.
It's the save. Well, I just, it doesn't automatically save, but where does it save to? It saves in this file, the Scrivener file. So whenever you open the Scrivener file, you're going to have all these versions on this document to look back at if you want to, and you'll never lose it as long as you take snapshots. So every version you've ever done of this is going to be right here with this chapter. So so every 3 seconds, the Scrivener saves itself, and it saves all these copies again too. Does that answer the question?
That's great, thanks.
Okay, so anyway, so that comparison thing I think is great. And then let's say you didn't like any of these changes, you want to go back to the original, you just push roll back. And then it asks you if you want to take a snapshot of the current one, which we already did, so we don't need to do it. And then it goes back to the original. And now you're back at the original.
Could you just go through the manual save one more time for us? So when you're saving it, just take us through
the
that.
Snapshot?
Yeah.
Okay, so if I wanted to save this version, all I do is push the plus. And then I can change the title by double clicking on this and call it, my 5th version or something like that. Or actually what I usually do is I talk about what changed. This is the version that Kala died. And this is the version where Tarzan got hurt.
Okay, we're getting quite a few questions coming through on this. So deleting old versions is one question.
Sure. So if I don't like this version, minus, do you want to delete it? Yep, but gone.
Great. And so Barbara asked a question are you saving just that chapter? I think, Barbara, you mean when you save which versions, but I believe that all of them are being saved. Is that right?
You're saving just the chapter that's highlighted that you're changing. If you decide to write your whole manuscript inside one editor chapter, which is an option, then you can do that. But basically, whatever you're focused on right now, as in chapter 1 out to sea, that's what you're saving. So like if I go into chapter 2,
it's whatever's in the editor box, right?
Right. So when I go to chapter 2, there's no saves because I haven't saved this one yet. But all I have to do is go, bam, saved it. There you go. Title it original, and then move on. So it's just the chapter. But if you choose to, because if you like to use Word and you don't want to separate into chapters, you can put your whole manuscript in one chapter, and then all your snapshots would switch if that's the way you want to write your book. Or you can do it in the good thing about having these chapters is, let's say the jungle battle, I want that to be earlier. You just move it up, and now it's up. So
Abby says this changes everything.
Changes your world, right? It's awesome. And then you can move it back. And then if you have scenes, if you have like 4 or 5 scenes within a chapter, you can move them between chapters. It's just that easy.
And then Adele asks, and the master document with all the chapters gets saved automatically, right?
Right. Well, so this whole Scrivener creation, everything on it gets saved with all your notes. And if we got comments, just like you have in Word, you can write comments, you can highlight stuff and said, find a new word, something like that. And so it's just comments, just like Word. And when you export it to Word, it'll show up in Word just like it does here in Word. So that's a really good feature. And all this stuff is saved here. And then so you're not really, when you're finished and you want to print it out, look at a hard copy, give a hard copy to someone, or you just like to read hard paper instead of reading digitally, which a lot of people do, and I'm one of those people, then you do something called compile. And it's under the file, it's compile. We'll get to it in a second. But you're going to compile, you can export it after you compile it into a Word document, any form, like 2007, the current, whichever. You can export it to a PDF. You can export it to a Mobi. You can export it to rich text, whatever format you want to export, it'll export it. And that you can say that wherever you want. And it's not saving it in that format until you're finished with your project. Like at the end of the day, just turn your Scrivener off, and when you pull it back up, you'll be exactly where you started, with all these chapters and all these saved chapters and all these comments and everything. And then when you're finished writing your book, or you're finished your first draft and you want to print it out and look at a hard copy because you're going on vacation, you want to bring it with you, and you want to bring your computer or something like that, or you want to print it out and send it in a box to your editor, if we have any of those editors that like that. Most of them like digital copies now. Either way, if you want to do that, you can do that. Or you can put it in Word and send it to a printer and they can print it out, however you want to do that.
Great. So it might be good actually to touch upon.
Hour. Let's do metadata.
Yeah, I think we have time to go to metadata, because that's actually quite incredible. And we have a question from Sarah about, can you talk about footnotes, endnotes? And I wonder if that's in the metadata.
So the footnotes in, I don't know much about the endnotes because I don't use them much, but I know there's got to be some way to do it. But I think what you can do is, the footnotes are the endnotes. You can choose to put them in the end or as footnotes. And there's a something in the preferences that'll let you do that. And I can look that up and send that to Parul, and maybe she can send it to you. But I'm pretty sure there's probably a YouTube thing about it, because the Scrivener is pretty popular nowadays. I'm almost positive that that's the way you can choose the footnotes go, either on the as footnotes or endnotes. You just have to set up the preferences.
Great.
But they're all here. Basically, you can just highlight it and you put it here, and it's either a footnote or comment or stuff like that. It's all right here.
Okay, that's fine.
Help?
Let's go to, yeah, that's
right.
Enough of a steer. We can come back to it later if another time. But the highlights of metadata would be brilliant.
All right, so metadata. What you can do for metadata is you can do anything you want. So, and this is per scene. This is down to the details, right? So if you're familiar with StoryGrid likes to say that every scene has 5 commandments: the inciting incident, the turning point, the crisis question, the climax, and the resolution. You can also do the POV, even though we're tracking it over here in the binder, the location, time, date, the duration of the scene, and the different characters that are in the scene. But you can put anything you want to track in here, and it'll be for each scene, all right? So what you do is you hit this gear button, you come up with this custom metadata, and you can add stuff. For instance, maybe I want to add, hey, is this an obligatory scene? If you're familiar with the StoryGrid, yes or no. Okay, oops, I can't spell today. So that's how easy you make it. And then you push OK, and now it's added to the bottom, and it's on every scene. Every scene has all of these things that you can track if you so desire. You can also make lists. You can say yes or no. You can make a checkbox. You can make a date. You can, if you want to say what time, what's the date that this happened, because that's really important to your storyline. If there's 10 days in your story and different things happen on those days, you can make it a date format. You can make a list so that there's a drop down of yes, no, or ABC or something like that. You make it a checkbox. You can wrap the text so that if you write too long, it'll wrap around. And there's a lot that goes into this. And I personally have 20 different things that I track when I'm editing. And when I read the scene, I track it over there. I use a StoryGrid spreadsheet and a couple other things, and I track all that stuff. But it's super for your rewrites, for your self-editing, or if you're an editor, this is an incredible tool. It's really powerful.
So there's a couple of questions coming through and some comments. So Abby asks, so you define all the fields and then apply the relevant one to each scene? Yes. So when you go to the gear, you can choose which different rows you want. And then when you go into that scene, the same fields will be available, and you can decide whether you fill them.
Right. Susie's
asked, any ideas how a non-fiction writer would use metadata? And I actually, so Randall, do you want to take that? And I have some thoughts as well.
So I'm actually editing a nonfiction book right now, and I use the StoryGrid to do that. And a lot of this particular book has like little mini stories in it. So I actually track the 5 commandments of those mini stories. He's writing a leadership book for military people, and he uses little anecdotes about his military career. So he has a story, and I make sure that he follows the 5 commandments for that little story. And then I'll also track different things like I'm going to move away from nonfiction, but if you have a fiction story, and let's say you have a subgenre of a romance, if you want to track all the scenes where the romance happens, or there's something that happens that leads to the romance that you can't track with a search button, that's something you can mark in here. Does this have something to do with the romance subgenre? Also, if you're tracking like different like the Ark, the Covenant of the Ark, the Raiders Lost Ark, you might want to track every scene that the Ark's in, or something like that.
It could be so. And 5 commandments is just one thing. There are, as you know, there are lots of different editorial tools that you might use. Like you can even track Save the Cat if you wanted on there, or whatever editorial tool you use. In terms of nonfiction, it might be something like, say you're writing about. So I know, Robin, you write about politics. You might be tracking something specific to I don't know, a subject area. Maybe it's on, I'm making this up, like feminism, or maybe some sort of historical movement. You might need to track it across each scene. I suppose maybe the way to think about it is all of this information on the right-hand side can be exported into a spreadsheet. So that by the end, you'll have all the scenes. So say you have 10 scenes or 15 scenes, and then next to it, you'll have the stats or information pertaining to that specific field.
So everything you put in metadata, including all the word count and anything else, you can put into this huge database, and then you can export this to Excel, or you can export it to numbers.
So two comments have come up here. Caroline says, say every scene you mentioned Foucault. Yeah, I mean, so you have a search functionality. So if it's a specific word or phrase, that you can search separately. And the other question is, does the metadata create keywords to search for? Oh, right.
So yes, you can search this search. You can search through your keywords. You can search through metadata. You can choose, the search is really robust. And in addition, you can assign keywords, like down here. You can say, like, for instance, I've made a couple keywords. These are my project keywords: romance subgenre, Tarzan learns to read, clues that there's a spy, and any red herrings. And you can actually, when you go to here, you can add a keyword and it'll come up, and you just select it and they'll put it right there. Or I actually have a keyword right here, and this pops up just like this, and I can drag it over here. So that's how the keywords work, and that it's very similar to the custom metadata, but maybe you don't have something you want to track for all 32 chapters. You just want to, and you can search the keywords just like you search anything else.
Sometimes with metadata, you can even do stuff like mini summaries that you want to track, or it might be the takeaway from each chapter for nonfiction. From my experience, I've only used it for sort of 5 months or something like that, is that I started very small. So I just used it for what I actually thought I needed, and it's just happened to expand as I've gotten more and more used to it. So I'd almost, as you're writing, start to think about, is there anything that's actually really critical for me to keep a note of as I'm writing? And maybe you don't need it. Maybe you don't need anything that complex.
So I want to do 2 things real quick, like 30 seconds each, because I think they're super useful. And then we can go just Q&A, because I know there's probably a lot of questions. I want to do a split screen. So if you're writing, this is be really useful for nonfiction, right? If you have an article in your research and you're writing your book, you can do split screen, horizontal or vertical. So let's just do horizontal. And then when you click in here, you can choose, you know, whatever research thing down here you want. So this, in this case, I'm going to choose a photo that I have for my character, because I'm writing about that character and I want to maybe capture what he's doing in this picture that I got from Pinterest. All right. So there's a picture, and now I can go up here and I can write, and I have the picture right in front of me. That's one way to use this. You can do, like I said, you can bring your research articles and copy and paste it from there and put it up there. And this is me. That's me in my old life. And then the other thing I wanted to show you guys is this view, which, because you have all this stuff and it's very distracting. But if you go to composition view, you can just stick with the writing and just write. And you can have anything on the side that you want, or if you want to make the paper width all the way out, you don't have anything out there. You can do it however you want, and you're just writing. You still have access to a lot of things in here, like your inspector. You can use all the stuff that's in your inspector. You can also get your keywords in there. There's a lot of things that are still usable in here, but you know, if you just want to write and not be distracted by anything else, you go into the composition one and just write your story. So that's the only two things I wanted to make sure that that I use all the time. So
that's great. I also noticed you had a background photo of yourself. That's good.
I just did that for you guys.
Okay, sure. Okay, great. Oh, Catherine asked again, how do you get to composition? That was in view, wasn't it? View.
The composition was in view, and it says composition. Where did it go? Composition mode right here. And you'll go when you go into the Scrivener preferences, you can set your background. It can be a color. It can be an imported photo, anything like that. So that's how you'll set it in preferences.
Lauren says that there's also a shortcut next to inspector.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a bunch of questions. So how are we doing? So we've covered the metadata. We've done split screen.
I think we're done. We're done with all the stuff we wanted to cover in this, and now we're answering questions.
Did we cover search functionality?
We didn't. But all right. So this is the search, and we talked about searching all this stuff. You can search any word, exact phrase. One of the good things is you can make a collection. All right. So it's a dynamic collection. So let's search for all the chapters that have Jane in it. So these are all the chapters that have Jane in it. If you click right here, you can go all the way down to the bottom. You save as a collection. Titled the collection. Okay. Now I already have a couple other ones. I have the cabin, I have Kala, and then I have Jane now. These are dynamic collections. So if you know that Jane's going to be a significant character in Tarzan, and you're writing it from the beginning, every time you introduce a new chapter or scene with Jane in it, it'll add to the bottom of this, or it'll order it the way it's ordered, but it'll add to this collection, and you'll see all the scenes with Jane or the cabin or Kala in there, and it's great. It's dynamic. You can also make collections of things that, like we were doing the keywords and stuff. Once you identify all the scenes that have the romance story, you can command click or control click all the scenes that you want to be in a collection, and then go up to the same place I said and make a collection. It'll just have a collection of those scenes in it, if that's what you want to do as well. And it doesn't just have to be let's see, get out of here. It doesn't just have to be what's in the manuscript. You can make collections of your chapters and your notes and your pictures of your places and your characters. So if you want to make a character of everything that's Tarzan, you do the search for Tarzan, you select all those, take the search out, add the character description of Tarzan, add, whatever other notes research you did on Tarzan, and you can make a collection of all that stuff. That won't be dynamic, but you'll have a collection.
Great. Just to go over this, because obviously this is quite new for many of us. Just remind me where the collections live, and just point to the search box one more time.
So this is the search box. To make a collection, you type in something here like Tarzan, which is probably a bad one for Tarzan. I think he's in every chapter. And then you go all the way to the bottom of this list to save search as collection. And then it'll ask you to make it as a name. So if you go there, say save as Tarzan, you can change the name if you want. And then all the collections are over here. And then so you have this, can you see this thing over here? Or should I circle it?
What are you pointing at there, the view?
Right here. Yeah, the view.
Oh,
so
yeah. Okay, nice.
If you go to this view, you can hide the binder, or you can show collections. So if you show collections, they'll just appear up here. You can actually color code them too, so they're easier to see. Like this is yellow, this is orange, this is purple, and then this is the binder, and this is the binders at the bottom. And you got the binder, and all your collections are there. And unless you want to hide them, and then you can hide your collections, because if you get too many, it kind of interferes with you getting to the rest of your chapter sometimes.
Great. So I think we've covered all the 4 major sections, but we probably have a little bit of time now to answer some of the questions that we haven't touched upon. Could you show us how to export a manuscript?
Sure. So you go to File, Compile. I'm going to give you an abbreviated version just to get it out. I usually just select Modern, you select Microsoft Word, rich text, PDF. If you just want to print it, you don't want to have it as an actual digital manuscript. Mobi, any of these things, selections. This on this side right here, you're going to select which chapters you want. If you want the whole manuscript, you can get the whole manuscript. If you click Alt, if you click the check marks Alt, it unclicks them all, or also Option if you're using a Mac. And if you do Option and click it again, it selects them all. So if you only want to, export a couple, you can unclick them all and then click those couple. Or if you want to click them all but a few, you can click them all and then select the ones you don't want to do. If you're getting this manuscript out to like in a Kindle file, a Mobi or something, you can add your front matter, which is going to be in the front matter folder here on the binder. And you can select your cover, your author's page, your title page, and all those things, and they'll go in front of the book. And then you just click compile, and it'll ask you where you want to save it. So I'll save it into my Scrivener file, boom, and you export it, and whatever you want to call it, I'll call it Tarzan New, and there you go.
Great.
And it thinks, and it's done. And it's not going to bring it up automatically. You'll have to go in there and look and bring it up yourself. But converting.
So Randall, so once it's on my machine and say I edit it and make changes to it, the process of uploading it, am I right in thinking all of that will, all the changes I made will come back in? So say I make comments.
If you do what I did initially and put a hashtag in front of each chapter, it'll import back in just like you have all the chapters and with the comments too. If you send it out to an editor or a beta reader or something and they had comments. It's taking a little longer because we're doing share screen, but it should be finished in a second. What other questions can we answer while it's thinking?
Let's have a look. So we've actually got a larger question about research articles. So if someone wants to import a bunch of articles that they can then use for writing. Let me just get the exact question. How does Scrivener work with research, incorporating articles and reading material related to your work? So it's all the stuff at the bottom of the binder. Yeah,
it's all this. You can put it all in here. You can actually put, I think you can put web pages, like live web pages, so that you'll actually see the web page in here too. And I mean, pictures, videos, you can put all this stuff in here.
So am I right in thinking you import it in the same way, you just drag it down?
Yep. You just drag it in. You can drag, like for instance, if the this piece, it's just as easy as this. So you got this thing right here. You're gonna pull up. I don't know. Let's pull up StoryGrid.
So I know, by the way, we're rushing over because for the interest of time, we're rushing over things. You will have this video that you can then go over and pause and then redo the entire step yourself. So can you link the research to chapters?
Can you link the?
You should be able to pull. You should be able to pull that chat. So where you have a chapter, you should be able to pull an empty folder underneath it, right? At the very least. Is that the same thing?
So I think I want to say yes. I want to say the things like you could link, like within the thing you could link this to the research. Link to the document, new link, place where you want to link it. Want to link it into your research, and then right there. And so by clicking on that, it would go to your research. Does that answer your question?
Can you, Joe, Robin, does that help?
So now that this is linked, it goes, and then it brings up I linked it to the standard manuscript, and when I clicked on it, it brought it up in the split screen so you could see it.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I can see what you've done. I've got a question about characters. Is there time to look at characters and how you might use characters section?
So, I mean, the characters is however you write it. Like it's got a kind of a template for you, and which it depends on what system you're using, or you're using your own system. You know, the goal of the character, the role in the story, age, location, this is the template. But whatever you think is important about your character to complete your character arc, if you want to write that and to remind yourself, especially the minor characters, this is kind of the place you could do it.
Okay, and to import pictures and stuff, it must be somewhere in the toolbar, I'm guessing.
You can just copy and paste them, or you can, drag them from the internet or whatever.
Okay.
Drag them from Dropbox. I think I dragged this from Dropbox.
And going back to Robin's question, I know, Caroline, you're also helping, because Robin's just, for someone who's writing articles like Robin, she wants to know, can I see the links to my research in the column next to my own text? So I can go back and forth.
All the links can be right here. You can just drag the links in here to all your research if you want to do that. Just for this chapter, you can put all your links right here.
Okay, great. Let's see, there was something on indexing that we had actually with two questions that I do want to go to. So Susie asks, can you talk about referencing and how you manage that? I normally use BibDesk and I've set it up, but I really don't know what I'm doing there. Also, is there any way to use, I actually don't know what LaTeX for math symbols instead of math type. Do you have any idea, Randall? I'm afraid, Susie, that's above my.
I think you're talking above me. Are you talking about, when you're talking about referencing, you're talking about like a bibliography and citations and things like that? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, yes, it is.
Yes. I don't know. I've never used citations in this. I mean, I've used the footnotes and things to track it. And I know Word has a great citation function that I've used, and I've never tried to do it in here. So I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if it's available. I don't know it. There, okay. You know what's really good though is the company is really open to suggestions. So they this is version 3.0. They've had like 6 versions before this, and that almost everything they've changed has come from their webpage where people said, hey, why don't you get this, and then they figure it out and do it. So if they don't have it, you can suggest it for the next version, and then maybe they'll do it. But I don't know the answer to your question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, she said no worries.
Yeah, I wonder if Caroline and other people who've used it for PhD stuff.
Yeah, so Caroline's saying, I mean, Caroline's doing a lot of really good suggestions around actually just being quite flexible with how you use Scrivener. So you can use metadata for some information. Citations specifically, though, I don't think we have an answer. But you can use metadata, going back to Robin's point on trying to have information that you can then reference as you're writing. You could use metadata. Barry asks, where can I do a course in Scrivener? Matt, Randall?
So I did it. I have an affiliate to the course that I use, which is called Learn Scrivener Fast. It's on my webpage, which is www.randysearls.com. And it's a great course. I still refer to it. I referred to it right before I did this, just to remember some of the stuff that I don't use commonly, to make sure that I can give you guys the best information on this. Once you sign up for it, there's 3 different versions. There's like a bare bones, there's a medium, and then there's like a ninja version. I think it's actually called the ninja version. I think if you did the moderate version, it would be fine. I think it runs like somewhere between 100 and 150 bucks, maybe something like that, the medium version. And I get a cut from that if you want to go from my webpage, or if you just want to go straight there. It's called Learn Scrivener Fast. And that was after I've been using it for 3 or 4 years. I wanted to use the rest of the functions, and that's what I signed up for.
Yeah, we'll share that link afterwards. We'll share your link, Randall. Okay, great. So question, can you use metadata to create an index? Can you use it to create X-ray info in ebooks?
I don't know that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so there's some things on the indexing and citations that we're a little bit less clear on. Okay.
And I'll just say that class I took probably doesn't answer that either, because I have the ninja version and I never saw him mention it, and I watched all his videos.
Question from Regina. There's 2 questions. So 1, when you upgrade, does it automatically upgrade your old works?
the Scrivener version. It doesn't automatically do it, but if I have the ones that I haven't updated, when I click on it, it updates it. When you bring it back in, if you need to bring it back in to look at it again, like my thesis was in like version 1.2, and I brought it in and to 3.0, and the S looks a little different. It looks, like the old version. And when I clicked on it, we converted it and brought it in, and it wasn't any problems really.
Great. Artie asks any guidance to use for blogging. To be honest, I'm probably going to start using it for blogging, and I think the way that I would use it would be in fairly basic, because actually, rather than having multiple Google Docs open, I'll probably just have either chapters or different manuscripts for a topic that I want to write about, and then put in subdivisions of either articles, and then maybe write at the bottom all the research, because you know how sometimes you just have loads of ideas that come your way. I would probably have little sections as my half-formed thoughts on different topics.
Right. That's the way I would do it too. I'd have a chapter for each blog article that you're going to write, and then if you're going to have web pages that you need to link up for your research, I'd put them over here in the document bookmarks for that specific article. And you have to connect these bookmarks to an actual written piece, so you can't connect it to the folder. So you might want to have like, so let's do it. I've got 5 minutes, right? So make a folder. This is my article, and then I would make a couple scenes, but I wouldn't call them scenes. And this would be my research, and then I would link up any of my bookmarks to this. And then also, as I'm writing the article itself, you could actually link stuff into there. And then if you have different pieces of the article that you have to do different research for, like different sections of your article, maybe you want to break it down each section of the article. So if you're writing about, I don't know, veganism, and you want to talk about potatoes on one section and salads on the other, or something like that, then this would be your research for your potatoes, this would be research for your salads, this would be your final article, and you could write your different pieces and then get them all into the article or something like that. That's how I would use it.
Just two more quick questions that have come up that I think we can answer. So Barbara talks about the collections, because she's done a search for Tarzan, created a collection, and the collection's up. So if you could go to your collections section, that would be great. Can you just show her how to find the word in the text? Because I originally had that problem, and then I found it. So if you now go into the text.
So when you click on the chapters, it should be highlighted in the text. Huh. Well, maybe it's.
Oh yeah. Normally it's highlighted in the text.
Yeah. I'm actually surprised. So there it is, highlighted on this. Maybe we just missed it. So it should be highlighted in the text.
Great.
Yeah, see, it's all highlighted in these ones. And for some reason, that first one, it's not, but I think it's because it's in the title or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, if you search, the other problem with this is when you search, you need to make sure you search for, let me get to this thing.
Okay, great. Yeah, Barbara says she's good now.
Okay, well, when you search, you might want to search for exact, because if it says like old, tar on one side and Zan on some other, if someone's put tar, like tar for like on the street or something like that, it might actually come up. So you want it when you do the search for right here, you want to make sure you do like exact phrase, because I've had that problem before.
That's
like
great.
I put like I did Tin Man for like I was searching for Wizard of Oz, and everything that had man came up. So you want to do the exact phrase so you can get what you need.
Great. One final question, which is about when you export and give it to an editor, what is the best setting to use? Do you have any tips?
No, I mean, basically, you're probably, because every editor that I've ever seen has like their own little, hey, it's got to be in this font and this size with this spacing and stuff like that. So you can do that when you do your tweaking of your compiling, and it'll be probably 95% there, but then you're going to have to look at the word and make sure that it actually did it correctly, because Word's always evolving and this doesn't evolve as fast. So sometimes you're going to still have to tweak it a little bit to get it exactly like the editor wants. So I would just get it out to your into the Word using the I mean, there's that Learn Scrivener Fast thing has a whole section on how to get it out correctly and mess around with all these defaults and stuff like that. And you can mess around with it and try to get it out to 99%, or you can get it out at 95% and then mess with it in Word, which is what I would prefer. I would suggest you do.
And that, so Nicholas just asked again. So how I would probably say, I mean, pretty much in line, but check what the settings are. What's great about Scrivener is that you can set the margins, the font, the spacing here, and then throw it off into a Word document. There's nothing else special you need apart from formatting. If it's just a straightforward Word doc that you're sending, there are some cool things you can do around exporting all the metadata, but that's separate. And unless your editors ask for that, you won't need to do that. Okay, sorry, one last question because this is a good one. How do I set across the entire manuscript? I keep having to change line spacing in each scene.
Great question. So there's two things you can do. You can set up your preferences, project settings. You can set up your formatting preferences. So every new document you make is going to be the same one. So this is use default font. So you just set it up here and you set up your size and your spacing and everything. So that's what I would recommend you do as soon as you start your project. And then for the one that you imported, I would go to your manuscript folder where you have all your chapters, go to scrivening, which is going to be your whole manuscript, and make your changes. Control A or Command A, and then go, hey, I'm going to change it to whatever that is. It's not very identifiable. Where is it? Let's see.
So just to be clear, I didn't realize this until today that's what that was called. That little where he's highlighted the two sort of pieces of letter on top of each other, that's called scrivening, and that gives you a view of everything, so that whatever you apply on the toolbar applies to everything, which is really
right. And
handy.
then it'll apply to all your individual chapters. It's just thinking because we're sharing screen, so and my internet in Romania is not freaking fast. Great.
Okay, Lauren says thanks.
All right.
Amazing, thanks. Great. Okay, thank you so much, Randall, for all this wonderful, wonderful information. Maybe you can stop sharing your screen now and we can come back as a group. Yeah, guys, thanks very much for being part of this. This is our first ever venture into trying to look at tools. I'm glad it was helpful. I've made a note of the things that you've asked for that we haven't been able to answer, and maybe that's something we can answer in a future session. But thank you very much for being part of this. Matt, do you have anything to add?
No, just to thank you, Randall. A lot of love for you in the chat. So we were all standing in a classroom with you, we'd all be applauding.
Yeah, absolutely. These are two of my favorite American men who I work with every week.
And we live in Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we
What's
live
that
say? Randall is also an excellent editor, and Randall and I run a co-host on the Storygrid Showrunners podcast where we analyze TV series. So if you want to hear more of Randall's voice and his knowledge and insight, go to his website. I'll definitely recommend that. I reference his blogs for Scrivener quite a lot, and I send them to anyone I work with. So if you need a bit of a recap, you can go to his website as well.
All my affiliate links are on my Scrivener articles. So if you just click on those, you'll see them at the bottom.
Great. We'll send a follow-up email with all of that. And Marty said we've started her favorite series because Randall and I are going to be analyzing Ozarks.
Cool.
Great.
Thank you,
we'll
guys.
also send a recording as well. So we know some of this was maybe quick and you want to rewatch it. The recording will have both the screen, but the chat as well.
And most of these things are written in articles on my webpage too. So, and they got screenshots and walkthroughs. So if you get lost on the recording, you can do that too.
Great. Thank you. Have a lovely evening, day, morning, wherever it is you are, and I'll see you probably tomorrow morning.
Yeah, great.
Good,
Thanks,
good luck
everyone.
with Scrivener, everyone.
Yeah, good
and
luck.
thank you so
Keep us
much, Randall.
posted.